Artificial intelligence, it's here. We're all discussing it and witnessing its power and potential. But long term, what will be the impact of AI on your business for entrepreneurs, franchisors, and on the brands that we interact with every day? We're witnessing the impact of AI on business. And right now, when we evaluate applications like Chat GPT, we're all evaluating what are the efficiencies and improvements that AI can bring for our businesses. But we also need to be thinking about the potential evolution of AI and its legal impact on your business assets, how you conduct your business activities, and ultimately whether or not AI has the potential to disrupt and undermine your business, your brand, your franchise system, and its overall impact on entrepreneurship. At its most basic level, AI is just a ton of computing power, software, linguistics, and science designed to replace and surpass human intelligence and human learning. And applications like Chat GPT are beginning to give us insights as to the impact that AI is going to have on every business. Basic questions that we all initially start with are, number one, how can I improve my business by using AI? But alternatively, long term, what are going to be the legal implications? You're going to be using an AI service, which means there's an AI service provider. What will be the terms of service and the degree of control that AI service providers have over business owners, over entrepreneurs, over franchisors? What happens to the content, data, and information that you enter into the AI systems? Who owns the content that the AI system generates? And for me, one of the biggest factors or concerns I have is whether or not AI has the potential to disrupt businesses and nullify the intellectual property assets that we've all built up and that make our businesses and brands unique and special. These issues are all evolving, and we're going through this together. But I think an important legal framework that you should keep in mind, or 4 important legal factors that we should all keep top of mind and be evaluating as we evaluate the impact and potential of AI on our businesses include, number 1, terms of use. What are the rules of the road? When you use an AI service, what rules are being imposed on you? 2, from a conceptual standpoint, does AI and your competitors' use of AI have the potential to undermine and dilute all of the intellectual property you've built up? 3, what liability issues can arise when you use AI? And 4, ultimately, what will be the regulatory framework? Is government going to regulate? So those are 4 important legal topics that I believe every entrepreneur, franchisor should keep in mind as you evaluate AI. So let's start with the first, terms of use, and I'll call ownership of AI content. We've all experienced it. We all sign license agreements and agreements as to terms of use or terms of service. So when you load new software in your computer system, you sign up for a new social media site, we're all checking a box and probably ignoring the legal content. We're agreeing to terms of use or terms of service. Basically, when we use a social media site like Twitter or a software application like Microsoft Word, our use is conditioned on our agreement to the service provider's terms of service. Basically, it's their sandbox, and we need to play by their rules. And with AI, it's no different. If you look at using Chat GPT as an example, they publish their terms of service. So when you use Chat GPT, and in the future, when you use any AI service provider, you're going to be clicking a box, agreeing to terms of service. And what we've all experienced also is that over time, service providers change their terms of use, change their terms of service, and we all typically ignore them, right? We just click and we agree to their newly modified terms of service. So as we enter the AI world, terms of service are going to be critical. Why? Because you're going to be using AI technologies. If you're a business that maybe helps with call center operations, pricing, estimates, logistics, and every time you use the AI service, we're going to be agreeing to their terms. Using ChatGPT as an example, ChatGPT's terms of service discuss who owns the content that ChatGPT outputs for you, what ChatGPT does with the content you enter. So let's use Chat GPT as an example for the moment. You use Chat GPT to generate some content and some data for you. Well, you're going to agree to their terms of service. They use terminology like inputs and outputs. So the queries, when you ask Chat GPT a question or you provide Chat GPT with data and information, they call that an input. And their terms of service are going to discuss whether or not the data you enter is confidential, how they use the data you enter, whether they use your data and your queries to learn and improve their results, which can in turn benefit your competitors. And also who owns the output. So as a business owner, if you use ChatGPT to develop content, well, the content it generates for you, who owns it? Can you copyright it? Can you claim intellectual property protection to it? And right now, this is all evolving. And based on my most recent review of ChatGPT's terms of service, and again, I wouldn't rely on this, but just use as reference, ChatGPT says, hey, we don't claim ownership to the content we generate for you. But does that mean you own it? And the answer is probably not. And ChatGPT also includes a warning and says, hey, we may generate identical content for someone else or very similar. So consider that the content you're generating, you probably can't claim copyright protection or legal protection to it. And also consider that your competitors may be obtaining very similar data and information and content through their service. So as a business owner, the most important concept to understand is legally, when we use AI systems, we're going to be regulated by the terms of service we agree to. And ChatGPT is just at the surface level. As AI impacts deeper into your business, how you conduct your pricing, how do you communicate with your customers, we're all going to become more dependent on AI systems. And while their terms of service may be favorable today, we need to be very careful that they don't become unfavorable 2 years from now, when it's too late and when our business is 90% dependent on the AI service provider. We also need to be aware that the efficiencies and benefits that AI is providing to us will also be provided to our competitors. Understanding the terms of use, understanding who owns the output of the AI generated content and data, understanding whether or not you lose confidentiality of any information you input. Are you giving customer information? Are you providing data that could become vulnerable? Are you violating confidentiality when you enter into information into an AI system? And ultimately, who owns those inputs, those outputs, and whether or not an AI system can use your own input to the benefit of a competitor, or maybe even to the benefit of a competing service that you never thought about, a competing business that may materialize a few years from now. Other topics, again, terms of service, it's our legal agreement between us and the AI service provider about how we're going to use their service, who owns what, and what are the legal terms and conditions. So who owns content, the input and the output, whether or not the data is maintained as confidential, whether or not we have to indemnify the AI service provider related to our misuse or even our use of the content and data that the AI system generates for us. So for example, if the AI system generates certain content, and if it turns out that that content violates a copyright of a competitor or violates other legal rights, many times the AI service provider is going to require that we indemnify them from any liability they incur from our use of their AI generated content. And then other basic legal terms, like if we have a dispute with the AI service provider, what law governs, what forums govern, and all other legal liability issues, including whether or not the AI service provider is capping their liability. If you rely on the AI generated content or data, if it turns out the data is wrong, and you make a big mistake and you incur liability in the marketplace, can you sue the AI service provider? And I would guess 9 out of 10 times, the agreement is going to say, hey, you use the data and information at your own risk as is without any warranties, and that there's going to be a liability cap. So those are important legal issues to keep in mind and to consider. And it's basic contracts law. They're going to be terms of service by the AI service provider. And just keep in the back of your mind how many times you get a notice where you load software, you sign on to a social media site and they say, hey, we have new terms of service. Do you agree or not agree? And we all just click agree. So we want to be careful and recognize that over time, those terms of service can change, and we may be very dependent on the service provider. The second legal issue, and this is one that I call intellectual property dilution. And this one's important for me and of, significant concern. Consider that every business is built around intellectual property. The most common examples of intellectual property, your trademarks, your trade dress, copyrighted content, your patents. Those are easily identifiable intellectual property assets. But there's more. Even if you're a retail-based business or a service-based business, your IP, your intellectual property, what makes you better than your competitors, what provides your differentiators, what creates a better customer experience, well, that includes intellectual property that you've probably developed over time through a lot of trial and error, a lot of hard work. It includes information, content you produce, data that you obtain in the marketplace, pricing information you develop over time, systems for training your employees, systems for enhancing customer satisfaction, how you communicate with your customers, the copy and content you produce on your website, in your proposals, in your invoices, all stuff that you may have developed in a very painstaking process over years or decades, seeing what works, what doesn't work, your human capital, your human intellectual property. This is a big concern of mine. So when we consider artificial intelligence, it's designed to surpass and replace human intelligence. And while it's easy to protect intellectual property assets like your trademarks, you own a trademark registration, how do you protect your human intelligence? Everything you're using to run your business, your franchise system, again, your training systems, the unique copy you develop on your website, the content you produce, if you're a content creator, all these systems that are not so easily protectable. So you spend decades producing this human intellectual property. And now what happens? Well, the AI system that you may be using or maybe feeding your queries to is also going to be accessed by your competitors, including brand new competitors that haven't gone through the years or decades of experience that you've had, the years of refining your systems, training your team, building out the copy and content of your website. And these new competitors are going to access these AI systems and potentially, in many ways, reproduce those unique content and intellectual property assets. It's going to be hard for customers to differentiate and distinguish brands that have earned their place and have inherently built in their systems and what they do versus new competitors and new entrants to the marketplace that maybe superficially appear the same, but don't have the inherent learned experiences. I call this IP marketplace dilution, intellectual property marketplace dilution. So you can protect your trademark. You could protect your copyrights to a certain extent. If you have patents, great. But the potential for AI dilution of your IP is very significant. And it's even more so for service-based businesses. Consider that a service-based business, over time, you're establishing your operations, your cost data, your pricing data, your proposals, and the copy and content that you put on your website, how customers experience your business, the feeling they get, and then ultimately to hire your business. AI has the potential to disrupt and dilute this content and this intellectual property capital because your competitors can essentially duplicate and copy it. Basically, they get to the end result without the sweat and hard effort. And that's a concern. So as business owners, I think we need to be concerned as a legal issue, whether or not AI is going to dilute our differentiators, our human capital, and the human-generated intellectual property that makes our businesses different and unique. This also has the potential for retail-based businesses. Now, do I have a solution? I don't have a solution. Under the current legal system, we know how to protect trademarks, registration in the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We know how to protect copyrights and patents. But the only way to protect our human capital or the human intellectual property, up until now has been to win in the marketplace. Consumers see a difference, they feel a difference, better copy, content, better marketing systems, better interactions. AI has the potential to dilute that. And I don't know if the legal system can catch up with laws and regulation to protect those assets. My guess is the legal system is going to be too little too late to protect those intellectual property assets. I'll call those human IP assets. They're going to be replaced with artificial intelligence IP assets. Taking it to another level for those competitors that use AI and believe they're gaining an advantage, at a certain point as business owners, entrepreneurs, franchisors, we have to be careful that 5 years down the line, now AI has accumulated and benefited from all of us in different businesses, competing businesses, relying on AI and providing AI with data on our operations, our scheduling, our customer pricing, every aspect of our business. And ultimately and legally, does the AI service provider become more important than the business owners and businesses and brands? And under terms of service, do the business owners and brands and franchisors become subservient to the AI service provider? And can we protect against that legally? It's an important question, and definitely we all need to keep this on our radar, not only from a legal perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective. My concern is 5 years from now, with all the data and know-how, can AI and AI service providers eventually replace the businesses and brands that they're serving today? That's big. And I would challenge the legal community. I would say politicians, but I have no faith in them. We need to think more broadly and extensively about intellectual property rights and what makes businesses unique and how to protect the human IP elements of a business and brand. Right now, we're not protecting it. And right now, I see the potential where AI can ultimately nullify what's unique about a business and unique about a brand, at least from the consumer experience or perception. And potentially, AI can even nullify brand value and replace it. So that's my biggest concern. It's a legal issue. It's also a business issue. It's one I'm considering for my own business, our law firm, our legal, our franchise development services. How do we create and maintain that unique value and advantage that we've worked over decades to create and prevent AI from just usurping it, initially distributing it to competitors where they may appear the same, but they don't have the same shared experiences and values that's going to make all the difference for our clients. And then ultimately, how do you prevent AI service providers from overtaking the businesses that they're claiming to serve? Legal issues 3 and 4, they're just basic legal. 3 is liability, obligations, and insurance. So when you use AI and you populate it with customer data or you obtain information and AI automates services and automates processes or provides information that customers rely on, what if it makes a mistake and something goes wrong? Well, the customers are going to sue you as the business owner. Will you have recourse against the AI service provider? Well, again, you're going to have to go back to the terms of service. And the answer is probably you're not going to have recourse. And then the next question or logical question becomes, can you buy liability insurance to protect against AI malfunction that you're relying on? And if we know anything about insurance companies, I'm sure there'll be insurance products that they're going to offer and sell to us as business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm sure they're going to have a ton of caveats and carve-outs to cover themselves. And again, put the cost and pressure on the business owners. The fourth legal issue that we all need to keep on radar is regulation, government regulation. I'm not a big fan of government regulation. I believe it harms business more than it helps. And unfortunately, government regulation usually comes too little, too late. It arises after the problem has materialized and the solution is ineffective. And I think that's what's happening here with AI. AI is far ahead of the politicians and the law. I think regulation is not going to be the answer. I hope it becomes an answer. If I were focusing on regulation today, what regulation would I focus on? Number one, I would regulate fairness into the terms of service that an AI service provider can and cannot impose on users. 2, I would regulate and create laws that prevent, maybe antitrust laws, that prevent AI service providers from competing with the customers they're servicing. Three, I would start reevaluating the meaning of intellectual property. And in addition to trademark protection, copyright protection, patent protection, general trade secret law, I would be evaluating whether or not we could expand the definition of intellectual property and protect human intellectual property, human learned experiences versus artificial intelligence created replications. So we're on this journey together, and the impact of AI is going to be explosive. I think one lesson we all need to learn and be aware of is that initially AI is going to present itself as a efficiency and profitability tool, and we're all going to be drawn to AI systems and service providers. It's going to enhance our profits, it's going to improve margins, it's going to be great. But what happens down the line? Do businesses, brands, entrepreneurship, the people that are adopting and using the AI become subservient to it? And ultimately, not just service-based businesses, but even retail-based businesses. Does AI and AI data become more important than the actual business and brand? And basically, does a business become a mechanical instrument to AI systems that control everything from customer calls to sending customers estimates to following up with customers on satisfaction to training to websites to marketing materials to copying content all over? So, hey, we all need to keep this on our radar. If you have any comments or thoughts, please share them below. Let's get this conversation accelerating. And like everything else, I believe in entrepreneurship, so we'll face this together and let's hopefully control this together.